Hey, Mark Anthony Lord. It's so great to see you.
It's so great to see you, Tammy. Glad to be with you and welcome everybody. Really glad to kick off our month, focusing on the spirituality in the recovery program, in the recovery world. That's what our topic is here today. My name is Reverend Mark Anthony Lord. I don't know why I put the Reverend in front of it. Sometimes I use it.
Because
I am.
sometimes you are, sometimes it's you.
Sometimes I am. I just love uh, talking about the 12 steps and specifically the spirituality of the program. So today we're going to be focusing on the 7th step. We're following the months. And so we're using the step each month and to explore spirituality. You don't need to be in the 7th step to do that. Don't worry about it. The principle, the spiritual principle inside of it is what we're going to look at today. And I assure you that can begin to be focused on this very day. So that's the great news about that. So I'm going to start with some meditation, which I always like to do, and then we'll do the Serenity Prayer. But anything else, Tammy, before I do that?
No, I just want to make sure that we talk about your new group on In the Rooms at some point too, but we can do that at any point.
Awesome. Well, we'll do both beginning and end. So
Okay.
I was saying that 2 weeks ago, I started a gathering called Spiritual Awakening. It is intherooms.com, is a wonderful 12-step portal, just gigantic with so many offerings, and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Very similar to what I do here with you, Tammy, facilitate a conversation around spirituality. And what's nice in that one is people do have the option to come forward and share and ask questions and participate. You're welcome to do here in this forum via question. We don't have people present themselves or use their voice in this forum, but you are free to share, ask any questions along the way, and share what you think. Right?
Yes. And I also want to tag on your that you did the Super Saturday Recovery Summit on that platform, and that was recorded as well. And so somebody's saying the volume is low. I'm kind of thinking I can hear fine, so I'm wondering if it's on your technology. So check your volume. I've got headsets and I've got my volume on my computer, so double check your settings. But if anybody else is having audio challenges, let us know. But I'm hearing him. I'm hearing him fine. So, but the Super Saturday Recovery Summit session with Mark Anthony Lord, like these, was recorded, so you can on intherooms.com. I think they put it on their homepage, and membership is free. I'm not trying to steer you away from our site, but right. We, as Mark said, we're focused on, sex addiction, intimacy disorders, repairing relationships, all of those things. And the In the Room site is a large platform across all of the addictions. Mark has that one. Dr. David Fawcett has a chemsex group on Tuesday nights. Dr. Rob has been doing his sex, love, and addiction on Friday nights for like 4 years. So there's a lot of, Cynthia or Sophia Cottle has a grief group. I mean, there's just a lot. And we will have the next Super Saturday Recovery Summit on July 18th. So if you're able to join, you can always reach out to me. I'll give you more details. So enough about In the Rooms.
Right.
We'll do our mindfulness. We'll get into the mode. So
awesome. That was all of our commercials.
Yeah, there you go.
So if it's comfortable for you where you are to close your eyes, that's great. If you can't, that's fine. But please join me in focusing on the breath. Nice, slow inhales through the nose. Expand the body as far as you can stretch it with the breath. And then when it turns into an exhale, exhale through the mouth. Just letting the jaw drop down and releasing the breath. Breathe in again through the nose, slowly, feeling the sensation of the body expanding as far, and stretch it, fill up with that breath, and exhale through the mouth, relaxing even more. And we're going to do this a third time. Nice slow inhale through the nose, focusing on the breath, using it to bring you into yourself. And When you're ready, release that breath with a nice exhale. And I invite you to let your breathing go to its natural rhythm, although keeping it nice and deep. Keep focusing on a deeper breath than usual, nice and easy. And we're going to simply breathe, release the thoughts, and center ourselves into the silence, whatever that means for you right now. Sometimes the mind is very, very active and it doesn't become quiet. That's completely okay. Your intention to breathe into the silence is what matters more than the noise. So let's do that for 2 minutes. If your mind has wandered, release the thought and return to the breath. And if it's possible for you to please join me in speaking the Serenity Prayer, wonderful, or just breathe in these words as I speak them. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, thanks for doing that. Such a wonderful thing to do that I should really do every hour. Taking 5 to 10 minutes at the top of the hour would not be a bad use of our time and energy. As I stated in the beginning, our focus for today is on the 7th step of the program. And actually, what's cool is the spiritual quality within this step also exists in the Serenity Prayer. But let me read the 7th step to you. Humbly ask him to remove your shortcomings. Humbly ask God to remove your shortcomings. And the spiritual quality of this step is obviously the word that it begins with, humility. The Serenity Prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That requires humility. Anytime that we're calling upon a higher power, whatever name you use for that higher power, whenever we are doing that, we're automatically activating humility because it requires us to be humble to even ask for help. Asking for assistance means that we need assistance. And for many of us, that is very humbling, especially for us as addicts. You know, my story is I was so overwhelmed with life at such a young age, and I had no role models showing me how to be humble, how to ask for help, or how to genuinely develop a loving relationship with my higher power, God. That's synonymous, so I tend to switch the words out. But when I use the word God, know that whatever word works for you, just substitute that if you don't like that one. But I didn't have role models. I had my role models were people that were afraid to appear weak or to look like they don't have their shit together at every moment. You know, the male archetype in my where I was raised was to pretend you're strong, men don't cry, you know, all this bullshit posturing, this machismo energy that really was so disconnecting from their hearts. So here I am as a little boy looking at mirror images of me, the men, and they're disconnected from themselves and they're pretending to be something they're not. And the women have their same version of that, which is don't show the weaknesses, and humility equals I could be hurt. That's the negative, actually. Let me say that clearly. The negative definition of being humble meant that I was like weak, like an ant on the sidewalk that could get stepped on and immediately taken advantage of or squished. So all of this building of I'm okay, I've got it all together, I don't need anyone, that is perfect soil for the addict. The addict goes, oh, goody. Oh, this is awesome. You don't need anybody? That's right. You be Mr. Independent. You act like you've got it all together because while you're breaking down on the inside, I'm going to jump in. That's what the addict says. And that's what the addict did and does. Whenever I lose my humility, I become more vulnerable for addiction. And that's really important for us to understand. And then here's the double-edged sword, right? Being humble is so hard sometimes, again, because of the walls of defense, because of living, you know, as addicts, we live lives of lies. Whatever that means for you, you know, we're always creating a fake persona. We're keeping secrets. Our secrets become the fuel for the acting out and for the addiction. And so then we get trapped in this back room where nobody's with us. And what begins recovery is opening that door and taking a step out into the sunlight. And it feels freeing for many of us the first time we step into the sunlight, because my God, we've been in the back dark room of the addiction for so long that it's although it's foreign, it feels really wonderful. But then it feels like the sun on baby skin. It's so vulnerable. Or I think of the snake that's coming out of shedding the skin and how vulnerable that snake is. And that's where humility becomes our best friend, because humility really is the portal through which our recovery flows. Because if I'm not humble, I'm not teachable. If I'm not humble, I can't hear what the words and the guidance that is being given me. And even if I hear it, if I'm not humble, I'm going to argue with it. So a desire to hide points to I'm not being humble. A impulse inside of me to defend or to fight or to justify, that's a sign that I'm not being humble. And also, if I'm keeping some kind of secret, if I'm trying to muscle through something without asking for help. So I'm just pointing to kind of ways that, and think about this, where do you find yourself defending and pushing back? Where do you find yourself unable to hear the guidance around you? Where do you find yourself challenged to be humble, to let go, and to feel the vulnerability of that? This is what I know, and I hope I say it again because it's so important. What I absolutely have discovered is that it's the exact opposite. It is through our humility that true power is revealed. Please hear that. It is through your humility that you actually access higher power. You access a power source, a generator of solution and life and positive energy through the portal of humility. So it's the exact opposite of what we think. And all the fear that comes in us, up in us around being humble is what blocks us. But once we start to move through that and get to the other side, it's very profound. Now, I want to point out one of our challenges that happens to many of us, especially relationship addicts or people in recovery, is we get an ounce of insight or some energy and freedom, and we think being humble means going to our loved ones. We think we're being humble and vulnerable when we're sharing our story or when we're being open about something that we haven't been. And I never want to stop people from doing that, but going to the right people is important, because we forget, like in my early days of recovery, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell everyone about this. I had no awareness on the impact of that. And I had no awareness on realizing that they have a part in this story that they don't understand yet. You know, if you're in a relationship with me as an addict, you have a co-addict or whatever that thing is inside of you that is mirroring and participating with me. And you may not know that yet. So my coming on humble and sharing all of this with someone can actually be hurtful, and it can be less helpful. And what often happens to that person, they defend, they fight, they push back. We feel attacked. Then we are like, whoa, this humility thing doesn't work. I try to be humble, I try to be vulnerable, and they just step all over me. That's not exactly the truth. I mean, that's what happens to us when we go down the wrong path with it. My point is, it doesn't mean humility doesn't work. It means that we got humble and then we took hold of the reins. So we got humble for a moment, which is open hands receiving, and then we closed them quickly and said, now I'll take charge again. And this is why it's so important that this step is humbly ask God, our higher power, to remove our shortcomings. So I am not, listen, this is a big time get out of jail free spiritual card. You don't do the heavy lifting. You don't know how to relieve yourself of the shortcomings that keep you in the addictive cycle. You don't know. I don't even know what all of them are, even though I've listed many of them. There's layers and there's sub layers and there's a lot in there. So I myself, don't have the ability to drill down into the subconscious mind, the underworld in the mind, and begin plucking things out and taking care of it. But that's not my job. My job is to humbly ask that it be removed for me. And this is like grace upon grace upon grace. This is beautiful. This is like, what else? How else can I describe how amazing the freedom is that there is a higher power that so loves you, that is 1,000% on your side, and its whole function is to help you become free of the character defects, the behaviors, the beliefs, the choices that keep us stuck in the pattern of addiction. We don't do it, but humility means it's like the surrender, hands up in the air, and then keep them up in the air, and then be patient. The practice is to be patient in allowing these defects of character to be removed, because what I've discovered is my conversation with a loved one on the other side of defects being removed versus prior to them being removed, two completely different conversations. Let me say it even better. They may be the same conversation, same words, but I'm completely different. Therefore, the conversation is completely different. Going in to have a conversation in a humble, vulnerable way with someone from a place of still being immersed in my shortcomings is it's like a pinball. Like, it's like the ball, just ding, 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 like everyone's getting triggered. It's a mess. But going into a conversation, which isn't even until step 9, but I'm going to jump ahead for a minute. Whenever we talk with someone, whenever we connect with someone, which we're doing all the time, when we do this from a place of having had the experience of some or much or all of our character defects being removed, you're such a different person. You come from such a more holistic place inside of you. And that's where everything begins to change. So, my greatest insight is I of myself do nothing. I have myself, that's a Bible verse. And remember, I'm a reverend, so I can throw in a Bible verse every once in a while. I only choose the ones that really are very, very neutral. And I of myself can do nothing. I of myself cannot change these character defects, but my higher power can. So there's an admitting of an inability, which makes me humble. And then the opening is the asking. And that's exactly what this is about. Asking your higher power for support, asking your higher power to do this, to help to activate your healing, and even to take it further and to make me willing to keep being open and keep being obedient and keep being humble. You know, I talked about this last month, by the way, and I didn't do it every day, but I did a pretty good job. I talked about praying on my knees, and we kind of made a commitment that we talked about the idea of let's give that a go. I don't know if anyone here was part of that and did that even a little bit, but that is another invitation for this month. Is that, I mean, that is even more so now on this particular topic of humility, to take the time to start and end my day praying on my knees, which I've heard so much resistance to in the 12-step rooms. Man, I've heard more brothers and sisters in the 12-step rooms get all puffed up and ego boom when they say, why don't you pray on your knees? And it actually gives you an immediate read on where are they around humility. Because if they're like, oh, wow, that feels vulnerable, but I'm going to give it a try. Awesome. You're a bit closer. But if they're like, I'm not getting on my knees, and they start fighting, they start fighting and pushing back immediately. No judgment on who they are in their soul. Of course, they're wonderful, but what's happening is the addict in them, or the ego, whatever word you use, is immediately in fight or flight, freeze, whatever it is. It's going to immediately put up a wall. And that is the very wall. Again, it separates us. And here's the deal, like, it separates us from a higher power, but it separates us from our family. It separates us from our lovers. It separates us from our friends. It separates us from ourselves. So it isn't just a wall between me and God. It's a wall that becomes a way of life. Defending, pushing away, hiding, feeling so bad about myself on the inside. None of this is of my higher power, but that's the wall of the addict that keeps the higher power out. So we're behind this wall, and the humility and the asking is like the wall is just coming down, 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 down. And very often it comes down like in layers, and the next layer, and the next layer, and the next layer. Sometimes, whew, but that's very, very vulnerable. And I don't wish that upon anybody, but everyone also has their perfect path. So, so again, just to focus us, and then I'll toggle back because I always love to hear Tammy's thoughts on this, to focus us again, and then we're going to go into the 7-step prayer. We're focusing on the spiritual power of humility, which is just a cornerstone of recovery and sobriety, is our ability to truly be humble and admit that we of ourselves cannot make this work. And that's bigger than just the addiction, but we start with the addiction. And then again, humility becomes the portal to great power. The more humble we become, the more power you have to use for good. That's kind of like it's a balance. It's how I like to think about it. If I'm this humble, I have this much power. If I go this more humble, I go this more power. And as long as they're balanced, then I'm going to be in a healthier place. The challenge becomes when I get access to power and I forget my humility. And then we're out of balance. And then I'm overpowered without enough humility undergirding it. And guess what's going to happen? You see it in politicians. You see it everywhere. People fall. People have existential crises. People do blow their lives up There's so much bad that can happen from having all this power that we access and gain without it being balanced with the spiritual quality of humility. So I've really come to respect the balance, to want the balance, and to do what I must do to be in that, because I want access to more power. I enjoy the power of being alive, the power of success, the power of helping others. I enjoy the power that makes me happy, the power that lets me travel and be in the world. I enjoy that. And that is what I've come to believe is my spiritual birthright. So I don't want to lose it. And I know how I lose it, and I know how I keep it. So that's our conversation today. What are your thoughts on that one, Tammy?
Oh, so much. I was thinking, thank goodness that all of this and dealing with humility doesn't come until after the fourth and fifth steps. One of the things that, because to me, the humility was being humiliated, like I had that connotation for it. But the other thing, it was always, oh, shucks, I'm not so good. And like that was the other side of it. And what really was made aware for me was that true humility is a clear understanding of who and what we are. So doing my inventory, I got a clear picture. It wasn't just the character defects. I also needed to assess what is good. And actually, many of the qualities that I have that are character defects are my good qualities, just used in the wrong way or in excess or whatever. So when you're talking about the balance and the proportion, I was like, absolutely, I mean, using a skill in one way is a good thing, and that's in balance. And then using it in a not good way, that's a character defect. And so I mean, I love being in balance. I don't like any more of the chaos and being, out of serenity. And, the power that you're talking about, it isn't the power of the mighty, but like you said, I want the power to live my life. I want the power to connect with people. I want those good things, and I do believe that we are, to have that. I really like too, when you're talking about asking for help. Why is that the hardest thing that we have to do, is ask for help? But every time I get calls all the time, emails all the time, and people want to read a book and figure it out and then have it all fixed. And just head knowledge of what the problem is has not, in my experience, been the cure for anybody. I mean, we can know the problem and we can still choose to act out. So it's one of those things where it's those connections with our higher power. And I 100% agree with you too, that, if we're building up that wall, we're keeping, it's a really lonely place because it's just us behind the wall, and all of the connections to all of the good stuff in life is on the other side. And I kind of cringed when you talked about the walls coming down quickly, and I've seen that. And I feel for people, where they have a, massive, very public whatever, but I thought that's how those walls come down really quickly. So much better to peel them down with the support of other people in the program that have gone through this journey or are on the journey and can help guide us. I do want to let you know, on the accountability, there were several people that reached out to me, and we were kind of accountability partners about the third step prayer. And, we were checking in, daily on that. And that was a very helpful thing. It worked good for us. And in fact, the person was like, I think we're past day 21. And I was like, oh, that's true. But I was like, it wouldn't hurt me to keep doing this. But I actually did a screenshot of the third step prayer, the Serenity Prayer, and the seventh step prayer, and have them on my computer. So as I see those little icons, I'll be reminded that, it wouldn't hurt to take a few minutes and do that. So anyway, that's kind of my wrap up. But I do, like, for me, understanding what humility is and isn't, that it isn't humiliation. It isn't being lesser than. It's just that very clear understanding of, of who and what I am. And that acceptance of that is like, like you said, my higher power accepts me for who and what I am, is encouraging me to continue to strive, for a closer alignment, but loves me where I'm at.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. And I usually have that in my notes on that. So thank you for catching that. The importance of it's not humiliation, because I mean, they come from, right, the origin of the word is the same. So, you know, it's in the same vibration, but they go in very, very different directions. And many of us were humiliated as children, you know, so we do have unhealed pain around. I know I have unhealed, you know, pain still sometimes through being humiliated. So it's something very, very scary, but this ain't that.
Mhm,
Another
right.
thing that you mentioned that is important. Shoot, it just left my mind. It'll come back. That's all right. What are some thoughts that you all are having in the group? I'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts to add to the chat
Yeah.
or to ask a
Or the
question.
Q&A. Yes. I'm happy to field those as well. So
Yeah, for sure. We'd love to know how you're tracking.
when you
Uh,
were talking about humiliation as a child, I was like, oh, I did a whole lot of humiliating things when I was in my addiction. Oh, I
yeah,
mean, now I laugh at them. It's just kind of, you go, okay, that was all part of the journey. But oh,
yeah.
yeah,
But
there's some things that you just kind of went, oh, I can't believe I did that. So,
well, the double life.
mm,
The double life is so scary. It's so it's
yeah.
so it's so scary.
You talked about the false persona, and I talk often about the facade, and you know, because we're always trying to show that we got this, we're all good, you know, and we aren't, like behind, like the knowing that if people really knew who we were, you know, they would never accept us. So we have to keep that false front up, that false persona, in order to be liked. But then we know that we're not really liked for who we are, because they only see this false thing that we put up. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's so complicated, but I guess I was going with the freedom to be who I am, my true humility, my, you know, here's my strengths and my weaknesses, and to have people choose if they want to like me, great. If they don't, that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
But at least I know it's on an honest basis. It's not, you know, this fake front. So
Yeah. I also want to take it to, I remember what I was going to say was the idea that there's a big judgment in our culture for many people that relying upon God is silly, or it's childish, or it's weak, or those religious people are so dumb. I mean, you know, there's lots of judgments on that today, and I experienced it in my own childhood because I would watch people. Well, I don't know. I was afraid of God. I don't know what it was, but this program again makes it very important that um, right relationship with our higher power and dependence upon that. That is right and good dependence. So we also have to have some of our constructs around our judgments around needing a higher power or leaning into a higher power or using it, being humble to ask for help from something when so many just make that weak. Literally, it's judged as being so weak, but the gifts of the program are so huge and they flip life over on its head. They flip it all over, and suddenly that which in the world is weak in recovery is our strength. And this is a, go ahead.
no, I was to say, I have loved what you have shared about like the preconceived notions of a higher power, God, whatever you were raised with. You know, if you haven't seen it before, check out some of the previously. Oh, sorry,
Hmm.
um, the previously recorded, because Mark Anthony is going, flip it over on its side, really define what it is for you. Don't accept what somebody else is telling you, figure it out. And like you were talking about, the program really gave me that, you know, what it is for me. The stuff I was raised with gave me an education and gave me some whatever, but where I really found my connection was, you know, was in recovery.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So again, we welcome any thoughts in the chat box or any questions. And while that's happening, I would like to move to the 7th step prayer, which is such a wonderful, wonderful prayer. And it goes, "My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character, which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. So I'd like to break that down from the beginning. My creator, my higher power, the love of the universe, the guiding force of goodness that is inside of me. I'm now willing, there's our humility, that you should have all of me, good and bad. I would actually scrub that out of the step, but I understand the language. I don't think that I'm in good or bad. I just am, but that's a different take altogether. So all of me, we put everything on the table, and whether we judge it as good or whether we judge it as bad, we just put it all on the table. I pray that you now remove every single defective character. So that's what the step is. We're asking that the higher power remove these defects of character. Why? So that I can be useful to God and to my brothers and sisters in the world. That's where we experience the fulfillment of being. We experience fulfillment and joy in life when we're useful, when we're contributing. That is a natural thing of your spirit, of your being, is to contribute. Now, most people don't. They're contracted. They're afraid. Not most people. That's a threat. A lot of people, a lot of addicts for sure don't, because they're so contracted. They're so afraid. They're so holding on. Where's mine? Where's mine? Where's mine? That's such a sick mindset. The healthy mindset is use me. Use me. Use my gifts. Use my talents. Use my heart. Use my hands. Use my smile to be helpful to the world. Grant me strength. So it's saying that we need some courage, we need some gumption, some strength to go as I go from here to do your bidding. To do your bidding. Now, to me, what I've come to know in my soul without a doubt, and this is a miracle to me, this is a spiritual awakening. The bidding that God has for me is only good. It is bringing me to be and do in the world what's going to make me happy. It's going to share my natural talents. The more I surrender, the more I come into alignment with my soul, with my soul's calling, with my gifts. And the more I'm in alignment with that, the more I attract in the world opportunities to be that, to share that, to prosper inside of that. To me, that is the exact same thing as God's bidding. I am 1,000 million forever convinced that God's bidding for me is exactly who I am. And I don't have to be different. And if I'm meant to go to school, if I'm meant to go learn something, it will be guided from God. I don't need to figure this out. I can just trust right there as I go forward to do your bidding, which is to be my most magnificent self in the world, shining my light. To me, that is my higher power's bidding. That's my higher power's call. And I want that. I want that today, much more so than I want to hide, even though it says I need some strength to do that. Even though it states in this prayer, I might need some extra, the courage is in me today. Courage, strength, the same kind of strength and courage, they walk side by side for me. So I need more of that to step into my natural groove of being in the world. Why? Because the world didn't teach me how to do it. Because I spent many years not doing it. Because I spent many years wasting my energy in the addiction. So now as it's getting turned around and I'm getting healthier, I need some strength. I need some support to go out and do that. So let me read that again. And really, if you can close your eyes, breathe this in. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. It's a fantastic prayer. It's a fantastic prayer. And it's what I'm going to have up on my computer over the next month in the month of July. So fun that today's July 1st, because we get to really kick it off with this spiritual intention. So we get to, I'm going to choose to really focus on that in the upcoming month. And I invite you all who are here listening, or whenever you're listening, or wherever you are. To me, I don't know, some people are more purist with the steps. To me, prayers are prayers, and you're never going to be hurt by speaking a prayer. You know, you might be hurt by trying to step into action in the steps before they're done. But in terms of the prayers, if you're willing to, if a prayer resonates with you, then you're never going to OD or do anything wrong on a prayer. So if this moves you, this conversation of increasing in humility, then I encourage you to consider walking with this prayer in your pocket, putting this prayer on your dashboard, putting it on your computer, keeping it fresh before you so that it becomes something that's just all around you in the upcoming month.
So I'm going to commit again to doing this. So if anybody wants to commit, you can email me at Tammy, T-A-M-I, at seekingintegrity.com. We can be accountability. It's great for me to have the accountability. So
hey, put me on that list too.
I will. Yeah. Go ahead and share your email. So yeah.
Good. We do have a question. I think.
Oh, we do. Okay. Yeah, I see it now. So.
Yeah, I attended both Al-Anon 2.5 years and S-Anon 1 year. Any thoughts on balancing two programs and working with the sponsors in multiple programs? I've stalled in my step work as I've been facing issues around my marriage and my husband's porn addiction over the past year. Any thoughts on those two programs walking side by side, Tammy?
Yeah, I mean, it is challenging. I mean, it's one of the reasons I mentioned Dr. David has a chemsex group because otherwise you go and talk about this and go and talk about that, but it's kind of splitting, it's kind of splitting the life again. So it's like we need a chemsex anon, kind of thing for the co-occurring. So, here's some ideas. I would love to have you really lean into the prodependence. There's prodependence drop-in groups on this site. In fact, today at 12:30 Pacific time, there's a prodependence, and prodependence goes across the addictions. Now, it isn't step work, and it's, although we're talking about making some steps for prodependence, so we'll see. That's in conversation. But I really also encourage you. There are too many people that are multiply affected. And I think having the conversations with your sponsors about, where you're at, what you're struggling with. That said, also, sometimes it needs a higher level of care. So, getting support from a qualified therapist that understands the prodependence lens, that there's trauma, the addict has the problems. You're just living with the chaos the addict has created. You are not the problem. You are not codependent. You are not an enabler. You're not pathologized, all of that. So, so if you're looking for some support from a therapist, or I know some therapists that have prodependence therapy groups, email me, let me know where you're at, and I will do my best to help you find that. But I mean, I've always find it challenging on the addiction side too. When a long time ago, I was in conversation with somebody, and like there were 12-step programs I had never even heard of. And then we kind of were having this conversation about, if you went to every 12-step program you qualified, you could be in 12-step groups all the time. So finding what's working for you and understanding that the addiction, the acting out, those are the symptoms, whatever form you're taking, but the underlying issues need to be addressed, was really helpful for me to understand. That's how I'm going to ultimately heal. I'm going to put Band-Aids on. I'm going to do different things for the behaviors. I'm going to stop the behaviors and all of that. But I really need to address those underlying issues. So, but as a partner, if you would like support, because you're not broken, you're dealing with somebody who is, reach out. I'm happy to help you. Listen to there's a whole bunch of podcasts that are geared towards partners. I mean, there's just all kinds of information on sexandrelationshiphealing.com that I think will resonate with you, but don't hesitate to reach out if I can be more directive for you specifically. So
Nice. Thank you. I think what I would add would be to I would encourage you to have these conversations with your sponsors. You don't need to figure that. It's very common, and I do this all the time. I see a situation and I try to figure it out all in my own head, which is not in relationship. So because we're practicing healthy relationship, especially around Al-Anon and S-Anon, like relationship is our focus, bring it to your sponsors and share what it is and be open to the wisdom that they may have. You might be surprised. One of them might say, it seems like giving the other program more attention right now might be good for you. So this is how I can support that. Like, I guess my point is you have a team there. Lean into them and see what the wisdom is there for you.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, I think we all can live by the steps and really grow. Kristen Snowden did a series on for non-addicts working the steps. I just think they're good living things. But, but if you, I mean, ultimately, um, the steps are the same. We talk about in AA, we talk about alcohol. You don't even talk about drugs, and I mean, so it's one of those things. But at the end of the day, what I had to do for myself, because I'm a multi-winner, was look at it as, all of my addictive behaviors, I need to stop them, but I need to address what's happening. Why is there a hole? Why is there a need to fill it with something that isn't effective, to numb out, escape, or whatever. And that was when, I really started doing major shifting. So hopefully that's helpful.
Nice.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any more.
All right. Well, always a joy to be together. I said I would like to invite us moving into closing by just taking again some nice deep breaths as we began. And I think it's appropriate for us to end with the 7th step prayer. So if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, great. If not, just leave them open and take some slow breaths. And I imagine that as we just let ourselves breathe deeply, that we're embodying the wisdom that is here for you today. You don't need to figure it all out. Just be willing to let your higher power give you the gift that is here. And even if it's one small thing that you heard, breathe that in and welcome it. As we move into closing with the 7th step prayer, my Creator, I am now willing that you have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. Deep breath. All right. So join Tammy. I'm going to join Tammy on the accountability in the upcoming month. Let's do the 7th step prayer and let it, better said, let it be done unto us and get some freedom out of it. And happy 4th of July weekend. Please, everyone, be safe.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark Anthony Lord. Enjoy Michigan. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.